Welcome to the Pigskin Party Podcast, the only podcast that combines real NFL analysis with a splash of pop culture and a dash of the random. Let's get this Pigskin Party started with your hosts, Brian McFadden, Will Southard, and Tommy Yu.
Welcome, everybody, to the PPP presented by DraftKings. My name is Brian. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening, or if you're watching this live on YouTube, and tell a friend so we can grow this here Pigskin Party. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Mr. Billy Southard and Tommy Yu. Tommy, I want to start with you first. We recorded another podcast earlier, completely separate from the PPP, so we're pretty hyped. How are you feeling right now, dude?
I'm feeling fantastic. I feel like we already talked today for over an hour, but I'm like, yeah, let me get a little bit more Brian. That's fine. So whether you call that up sucking up or not, I'm in for a good time.
I'm always up for additional Tommy time. Tommy time. I even like the alliteration of that. So we'll record multiple podcasts just so we can have extra time to chat and to talk football. And why don't we turn it over to our boy Billy, aka Will Southard, looking much less enthusiastic than the two of us. Will, how you doing today?
Why would you do that? Did you tell him that your name used to be McFaddy?
No, I did not.
Exactly. Oh yeah.
Good. Managed to leave that out.
Exactly.
So, yeah, my nickname in high school, people didn't call me McFaddy, in fairness, but it was on my senior jersey as McFadden, so they just made it McFaddy. 17, 18-year-old kids, haha, I thought it was funny. But I had a senior jersey that I wore in college, so people would just call me McFaddy because I would wear that around. And so that was kind of like a bit of a stage name when I first got into music and was playing with Will. So some people didn't know my name. They just called me McFaddy. So that is true. That is true.
Yep. And that's how you spin that around, ladies and gentlemen. And now
that is a expert pivot, way to deflect, Will. I'll give you kudos to that. So yeah, we are doing our main episode, recapping all of the Week 10 games. Both Will and I saw some games in person, so we'll be able to give additional perspective. Our producer, Anthony, is high on painkillers right now. He had a root canal before coming on the show. If you've listened to the show before, our best content is at least when one member of the show is on pain meds. So fingers crossed that it's going to be good.
Anthony, if you're confused right now, make a sound effect.
Perfect.
Wow, that was a really long one.
It was, and he was quick on it. No delay. So maybe...
Oh, the double, the classic double.
There's the inevitable Anthony hitting the sound drop one more time than he actually needs to. Before we get in, quick reminder, we are part of the Pigskin Podcast Network, so make sure to check out all the great NFL podcasts, pigskinpodcastnetwork.com, as well as our sponsors over at DraftKings. So let's go ahead and jump right into the recap of the Week 10 in the NFL. If you happen to be listening last week, you'll know that we did things a little differently with how we previewed and picked the games when we had Ari Mayrov of PFF on. We're going to keep that going, but that's also going to affect how we recap the games. In case you didn't listen, what we did is we had a draft because there's anywhere between 13 to 16 games. It's hard for every one of us to cover every game in detail. So we're like, you know what? Let's have a draft so we can cover specific games, but let's not just cover draft the games that we want to cover. Let's draft games for each other. So we're going to go through and recap the games, but we'll have one of us that is supposed to be, when I say supposed to in quotes, covering, because I think we all know Will didn't actually cover any of these games and he's just going to wing it. But the idea behind that is
calling them out just like that in front of all the listeners.
Of course.
Billy, I'm here for you. Don't you worry.
Will, do you dispute this?
Thanks, Tommy. You.
Yeah, there's no disputation. Disputation. That's not really a word. So let's go ahead and jump in. We'll start with the Thursday night game. We'll go ahead and let's do all the primetime games because we just kind of all are going to cover those. And then we'll jump into the drafted games where one of us will cover in detail each of the games that we were drafted. So Thursday night, bit of a stunner. Obviously a happy stunner for me. Miami Dolphins 22, Baltimore Ravens 10. I will start this as the resident Dolphins fan. I was completely going into this just thinking I wouldn't have to pay attention that much to the game. I thought Baltimore was just going to run out to an early lead and that Miami just, so we beat the Texans. I wasn't exactly feeling great, but no. This defense, Flores came up with a plan that completely seemed to just befuddle Lamar Jackson. I mean, it was basically like I think they set a record, at least for this season, with the most safety blitzes. They were essentially going cover 0, no deep safeties, man on the outsides, blitzing the safeties in, and almost like an engage 8 for what it seemed like most of the game. And even the times they didn't, they would line everyone up on the line of scrimmage and then drop a couple guys back. And for whatever reason, Lamar just couldn't figure it out. And the Dolphins got out to an early start. They got a Xavier Howard fumble recovery touchdown at one point, so the defense actually got on the board. And the Dolphins did enough on offense. Tua actually came in relief. So he had the thumb injury, was apparently healthy enough to play because he was the backup, but Jacoby Brissett got the start. Didn't look great, injured his knee. Tua comes in, did lead a scoring drive. Couple miscues by the Ravens on defense, one in particular that was pretty bad. And the Dolphins pull out the win.
Isn't Blitzen one of Santa's reindeer?
I think so. I'm not going to go through all 9. It's 9, right? Right? Rudolph and Donner and yeah.
I don't think that's a word. You said that, but I don't think that's a word.
That's how it's said in the South. You should know that, Mr. University of Florida.
Miami just started blitzing.
They just started blitzing all over the place. Let me tell you there, man.
Jesus. That's what my kids too, and then he goes, I want to watch football.
Oh, that's gotta hurt.
But he's not Southern. He just says that because he's 2. He's like football. All right,
okay.
Back to what you actually talked about. I watched the end of that game, and yeah, I mean, I don't know, dude. I flipped it on 3/4 the way through, and watched the very end of it. And when I turned it on, I was like, "What is this?" And
it was like 6-3 probably at that point.
And
so most of the points were scored in the 4th.
I was really confused, and then it happened. Any given Sunday, right? We had a whole week of that last week, and then this week we had some of that. But
it was almost like a continuation of the Week 9 chaos and shenanigans.
Yeah.
Tommy,
I feel like the thing that confused me the most was the fact that it looks like Lamar was getting so frustrated with his team. They're like, come on, guys, like we can do this. I'm like, Lamar, do you know that you're the one that's not able to figure this out right now? Like they're doing that, like that meme that was circulating around. They had like the little Madden play called like mid blitz or something like that, where it's just pretty much a cover 0 the entire time. So it was just as frustrating for someone who's a Lamar truther to see him be so befuddled with not being able to comprehend how to break down that defense. But hey, here's to hoping that Lamar is the MVP type of quarterback and football player that he is, that he's going to be able to learn from it rather than being like, oh, well, this is my kryptonite. You just can't beat it. So he's definitely going to get better, but it's kind of crazy to see him get so thoroughly dominated like this.
So I'm going to start with, at least with the games I cover, and I can do that with the primetime games as well, trying to throw in some interesting nuggets, some kind of interesting off-the-wall stats as a way to kind of glean something out of these games. So with the Baltimore Ravens-Dolphins game, the Ravens only had 2 offensive plays over 20 yards. They had been averaging 5.5 such plays through the first 9 weeks, which was the second most of the NFL. And this one's even more amazing. So the Ravens scored fewer than 14 points for the first time in their last 53 games. So they had scored more than 14 in 53 straight, ended with 10 in this game. That was the second longest such streak since 1940.
That's unbelievable. Like, I feel like the Ravens always have these kind of crazy type of weird streaks going that we're not aware of.
Like the preseason win streak, yeah.
Yeah, and then to see it all. And, like, that rushing streak, remember? Like, the most 100 yards consecutive games. Like, they have all these weird streaks going. But, yeah, I feel like that just shows how historically dominant Miami's defense game plan was against Baltimore.
I mean, if I heard you right, you said you're going to start giving out nuggets, and I have not yet received my nuggets. We don't get paid to do this podcast, so
is that a hunger
Will
thing?
just straight up wants nuggets.
I would
you
like
just want some
nuggets.
chicken nuggets?
Would
you like me to like Uber Eats or DoorDash you some nuggets just
yes,
randomly?
I actually would really appreciate that.
Thanks for doing the
pod.
pod.
A 4-piece spicy.
By the way, and I can't believe I didn't mention this, bad host. Today marks 1 year since the release of the premiere of the Pigskin Party Podcast. So you know what, Will?
I feel like
that'll be my payment.
Nuggets.
That'll be my payment for 1 year of podcasting for free with me. Is I'll buy you some chicken nuggets. Do you want them to be McDonald's or can they be anywhere? Do you have a
4-piece
specific
spicy Wendy's? Or
a Wendy's? That's very specific.
Or the Burger King Ghost Pepper Nuggets. Those are fantastic, by the way.
I see all the commercials about the.
Shout out to nuggets and fat people.
Shout out to nuggets.
Speaking of nuggets, Rashad Bateman led Baltimore in receiving in that game, and he's kind of trending really positive in that offense, which is good to see because it's sort of been the Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews. Well, it's really been the Mark Andrews show. Marquise has looked good.
Hollywood Browns look pretty good this year.
I just said that. But
the Rashad Bateman, that might be hint, a little teaser for our Hires and Flyers later.
Well, that's my nugget.
Let's go ahead and move on. So I will do the first one on here, and that is sticking in the AFC East. Buffalo Bills back on track, 45-17 over the New York Jets. Mike White is who we thought he was. So the Mike White honeymoon, the hype officially is 5 quarters long. So he had the 4 quarters against Cincinnati, came back over 400 yards to beat the Bengals. And then the first quarter, the week after that, where he threw the touchdown and then was out for the rest of the game. And then he comes back in and he just 4 interceptions, looked awful. Just the Bills' number 1 defense, granted, but still. This is why backup quarterbacks are backup quarterbacks for a reason. It's rare to find some guy who's been sitting on the bench and traveling to different teams.
Hang on. What game did Zach Wilson do better than 4 interceptions?
Now, I didn't say he's better than Zach Wilson at this point. This is not a reflection of Zach Wilson. This is a reflection of everybody saying, Mike White, oh, look at this. He said himself, he believed he should have been the number 1 overall draft pick. It's like, okay, calm down, buddy. There's a reason you've been on multiple teams. You've been cut by certain teams, and you were a backup on the New York freaking Jets. It's because maybe you're not as good as that the Bengals game made you look.
He played the Bills. It's a good defense. So
yeah, even good established veteran franchise quarterback struggle against Buffalo. One thing I wanted to add is it's kind of fun to ride one of these waves. There was Minshew Mania, which was a lot of fun, but being an Eagles fan and when the Nick Foles thing happened, everyone kind of embraced them. Now to see the Mike White thing happen, looking from the outside, I'm like, oh, this is fun. You want to root for someone like this. So it's kind of neat to be kind of on board with that Mike White kind of thing and have no skin in the game. So
I just picture Gardner Minshew lying in wait with his American flag sweatpants on and his bandana for Jalen Hurts to walk around the corner unawares in the practice facility and then just get roundhoused and taken out. And then he has to be the starting quarterback.
How did this turn into a Jalen Hurts discussion? We're talking
no, it
about
didn't.
Jets.
It turned into a Gardner Minshew as the GOAT discussion.
Okay, fair enough.
One discussion
I will allow it.
That I think we need to have is screw Stefan Diggs. Screw you. Every week that I want to play you and you should be good, you stink. And this week, I'm like, nope, not playing Stefan Diggs. You go off. I don't understand it. I hate you. Please stop screwing my fantasy life up.
Well, I have a little bit of a theory on that specific point. So they have not. Josh Allen has done. Yeah. This is all of those NFL players. Brady hates you too. That's why when you came to see him play, he played like crap. Josh Allen has done a good job of spreading the ball around different receivers. There's a Cole Beasley game. There's an Emmanuel Sanders game. Dawson Knox at the start of the season. Diggs here and there. Last year, it was very much just pepper Diggs with 14 targets a game, and it was successful. What happens? They play Jacksonville. They're not ready to play. They score 6 points against the Jags. I think this was a wake-up call, and Josh Allen's like, screw it. I'm just going to air the ball down the field. He had over 360 yards passing. He only completed, I want to say 20-something
21
pass. Yeah. So this was just pure long ball game, and Stefan Diggs had 8 catches for 162 yards. So this was more I think you're going to see more games like this from Diggs. There's another teaser for a possible hire and flyer in the DFS section. So I don't think this, in other words, Will, maybe he does hate you, but I think you could probably confidently play Diggs a little bit more going forward.
Mm-hmm.
That's the extent of the analysis I get from
They covered a 13-point spread, so good on the Bills.
All right, so here's the Bills nugget that we're going to leave you with. And I'm sorry I keep using the word nugget. Well, I know I'm just going to make you hungrier and hungrier. So the Bills scored their most points in a game versus the Jets. This is a little surprising. Since week 4 of 1979 when they scored 46 points. They scored 45 here. You think the Jets have been bad for a while. The Bills have been good for a few years. But no, this was the most points they scored since before any of us, the old man me included, were born. Okay, so
back
let's
in the Stone Ages, huh?
Let's move on next. Let's go ahead and rip the Band-Aid for Will. Next, we're going to talk about his love, Tom Brady, who he saw in person.
Disappoint him.
Traveling to the Washington football team, who, granted, was Will's planted flag team at the beginning of the year, but we all know they've had literally the worst secondary in the NFL. Make Tom Brady look like Mike White. Ooh.
I mean, he had 50% the number of interceptions, to be fair.
Fair enough.
What a frustrating effing game. So here's the thing. So I sat down, and Tom comes out, in the beginning of the game, and I screamed, "I love you" on top of my lungs, which I'm sure he heard. All of the Washington fans around me definitely heard. But I'll tell you what, there were more Tom Brady jerseys in that stadium that day than there were football team jerseys. So
that's not surprising.
Be that what it is.
Yeah.
Just a frustrating game. I mean, Chris Godwin was kind of supposed to not sort of be there and was there. Mike Evans was wide open many times in that game. And I don't know I think Tom Brady started Leonard Fournette on his fantasy team because Leonard Fournette had 11 carries for 47 yards. He had 8 receptions for 45 yards. Chris Godwin, number 2 on the team with 7. The football team they could not get them off the field. There was, every clutch catch that they needed to make, they made. McLaurin made one to seal the game. Antonio Gibson had 2 touchdowns. Of course he did, because I played J.D. McKissick, who had nothing the entire game. So it was this game.
By the way, you say stuff like that. You won our DFS league, not the podcast, but a separate league 3 years in a row. But everybody's out to get Will. Everybody hates Will. It's a conspiracy against you.
Even my worst picks are better than yours.
Oh, ouch. Happy 1 year, Will.
Tom Brady had almost as many rushing yards as Giovanni Bernard in this game. Come on.
That's telling.
Come on.
That's
but
telling.
Yeah,
So,
it was just a bad game overall. I think that, number one, that offense really does miss Antonio Brown and Gronk, right? Like Evans and Godwin are good, but they're just, the TD that Tom hit with Evans on the sideline, that was open several times, and he only threw it once. He didn't even try to push the ball down the field. Overall, very boring game. A lot of dink and dunk. Washington didn't throw the football down the field. Tampa didn't throw the football down the field. But I did get to see Tom, and I stared at his butt for a solid 4 hours, as God intended. So
Win-win.
at least you got that. You can always remember Tom Brady's butt in person.
I took a picture of it, and I posted it on Twitter, and I said,
I saw. Good
Okay,
for
good.
you. At least you're open and honest about your love for Thomas Edward Patrick Brady III Jr. Okay. Almost got it right. Let's go ahead and move over to the NFC East. The Atlanta Falcons heading to Jerry's World to take on the Dallas Cowboys. Falcons coming off a win. Cowboys coming off a loss. Tommy, how did that go down?
Talk about a thrashing. I feel like right after Dallas lost, people are like, oh, they're not how they always are. They just got dominated. They're figured out, whatever. No, what better get right game than playing Atlanta? And this is when Matt Ryan has kind of been on fire, right? He's been playing really, really well. So what does he do? He literally only had 9 completions for 117 yards and 2 interceptions. Like, that's what it translated to. And this was a man who is, like, on fire. They were so bad to the point they put Josh Rosen in. I feel like enough said there. But I feel like the only good thing to come out of the bad Atlanta offense, at least on a fantasy perspective, if you want to turn it that way, is Kyle Pitts, once again, in a game where Atlanta was down the whole game and only scored 3 points, just a field goal. I mean, he had 4 catches for 60 yards. That's not that bad, especially for a tight end, and I put that very loosely. Even our boy Corduroy kind of stayed a little bit quiet this game, but that's just
Got
because...
injured, by the way. It wasn't announced.
Yeah.
He was not put on the injury report, but now he's not doubtful. He's questionable for the Thursday night game.
Which stinks. You hate to see it because we are the champion for that person or that guy. I mean, he's so much fun to watch, but
we're the Corduroy fan club right here.
Yeah, we are. And so hopefully he could continue to keep that going. But I feel like the storyline was essentially Dallas. I mean, they clicked on all cylinders, even their defense obviously being able to hold the Atlanta offense to just 3 points is great, but I mean, also putting up 43 on the other end is also great. It was all those interceptions and kind of things, and the defense putting them in good positions. But Dak Prescott looked almost 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. CeeDee Lamb looking as dominant as ever. That whole first drive was just a CeeDee Lamb showcase, and it just really showed off just how many great skill position players they had. But I feel like the underlying thing that I'm just going to close on, because I don't like to say too many good things about the Cowboys, is, Tony Pollard, he looks great. I feel like yeah, right? Because I feel like if Zeke wasn't just Zeke, he would just be already forgotten. He had 14 carries for 41 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. Like, he just fell into the end zone twice. He had a 2.9 yards per carry average, whereas Tony Pollard had less carries than him and had more yards rushing. Like,
he's more explosive. He
is, and he's great in the receiving game. He had 6 catches for almost 60 yards. Like, he's great in all facets. So I don't know. I never really liked Zeke, so maybe that's why I want to pump up Pollard a little bit. But I feel that's kind of the underlying thing. Their whole offense clicks, and to me, at least, Pollard was by far the best running back on that team.
How do you not like Zeke?
Dude, I'm not a fan. Well, I don't like the Cowboys to begin with, and because I am around like the Penn State area, we hate Ohio State. And so he's from Ohio State, and now he's a Cowboy. So I never really had a reason to like him.
Yeah, but did you see Hard Knocks? I mean, you kind of gotta like Zeke. He just seems like just a fun-loving, just almost like a big kid. Like I'll admit, as much as I hated the Patriots and certainly didn't like Brady when he was there, I always had trouble not liking Gronk. Gronk is he's just a fun guy. So you can hate the Cowboys and still be like, you know what, Zeke? He's okay.
I mean, Zeke also has allegations against him. He's kind of a dickhead, so it kind of makes it really easy for him.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
I'm pretty sure at this point in time, you probably can just use that excuse for anybody that plays in the NFL.
That's fair. That's also fair.
You just put all them allegations, and you're like, that's fair.
Not Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow's
not Hunter Renfrow.
The one pure soul in the NFL.
He's the only pure football player out there.
All right, let's move on to SoFi Stadium, where the Los Angeles Chargers hosted the Minnesota Vikings, the most mercurial, you like that word usage, team in the
league. No, don't ever do that again.
I was asking Tommy. Will, not you.
Don't ever do that again.
Lost like half our audience. They're like, nope, I'm out.
We're trying to elevate.
First time listener comes in. Oh no, I'm out.
We're trying to elevate. I've used the word alas. I mean, come on. I'm supposed to elevate. You're supposed to.
Our first non 5-star review. Yeah, I was on board.
I'm almost wanting it at this point. Like,
no, stop it. Get out of here.
A year with 5 stars, only 5 stars. Somebody leave us a 4. Just leave us a 3. But tell us why.
With you?
Give us your actual feedback.
What's the definition of mercurial?
Well, it goes up, down. It's unpredictable. It's not stable. It's mercurial.
Number 2.
That's the Vikings. So the Vikings,
according to dictionary.com, it's of or containing the element mercury. Therefore, you're wrong.
Okay. Who's bringing the content? Who's bringing the quality of the show down now? Now we are going to get a 1-star review. The guy read a dictionary reference. 1 star.
Great.
Podcast sucks. All right. So these mercurial Vikings, who had led the NFL in games decided by a single score, added another one onto that by winning 27-20 against the Chargers. I would say on the road, but when you play at SoFi, when the Chargers are at home, it's not a home game. The Vikings had more fans there. But the big difference here is, so the Vikings were up at halftime. Chargers took control in the second half, went right down, scored a touchdown, nice little 2-yard pass to Austin Eckler. Looked like, the Vikings are going to lose again. They always find ways. But no, they put together some really nice, solid drives. Cousins, just shy of 300 yards, 25 for 37 for 294 and 2 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook with 94 yards on the ground and another 24 in the air. He also had a rushing touchdown. They just played better. They played smart. They played conservative, and they kept drives alive. They had a lot of conversions here. And the Chargers just kept playing small ball. So my concern here is you've got this Joe Lombardi, who was the quarterback coach who worked with Drew Brees in New Orleans for many years because of the way they ran that offense and because of Brees' physical limitations. It was a very condensed, quick pass, short game.
About him being white?
Why does race always have to be a thing? Mentions Hunter Renfrow as the one pure soul, talks about the white quarterback. Like, come on, Will.
It's fair. He does have physical.
We are trying. We are actively trying to not get a 5-star review for the first time. I think it's 1 year in. We're like, no, all the gloves are off. No,
we're not that good. We got to bring ourselves down.
You've got a quarterback in Justin Herbert whose physical skills are about as good as any quarterback in the NFL right now, and they're just not utilizing him that way. They're keeping it very condensed. You started off where they were airing the ball out, and Mike Williams was very much involved. He's much more of a deep ball guy, much more of an intermediate route. Now, Keenan Allen is a lot more involved, where he's more of a slot. He's great. One of the best route runners in the NFL, but he's really not kind of a deep threat. And they're paying for it. They're not able to really move the ball downfield and threaten defenses. The Vikings have not been particularly good, especially since Patrick Peterson got injured, about slowing down offenses. Why are you not attacking that way? So that's my biggest takeaway here. And I think that could spell trouble. As we were high on the Chargers early. Justin Herbert, 195 yards passing on 34 attempts, 20 out of 34. You can't win games like that. You've got a freaking Rolls Royce, and you're driving it like it's a Pinto.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head personally when you said that their game plan does not adapt well. They played like a completely different team the first half of the year, or I know we're kind of at the halfway point, but I guess like the first first quarter of the year, they played like a completely different team. They played fearlessly. They aired the ball out, and they got Mike Williams involved. And they even said, hey, Mike Williams isn't just a deep threat. We could do this and that with him too. But for some reason, whether it's due to poor play on Mike Williams' part, because he has not looked that great when he is targeted. But then now I'm seeing conflicting reports where he looks great, but they're just not getting him the ball. Maybe they're trying to limit Herbert from really risking, any kind of bad play, even though he's been great. But I think until they find a way to get that aggressive mindset again, I feel like it's not that they're losing, they're just beating themselves. But maybe I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Eckler isn't, he had 6 targets. Eckler was way more of a factor. He only had 11 carries.
But that's the same thing. That's the short game, and Eckler's a great weapon. You need to utilize him, but they're not stretching the field at all. So Allen had 11 targets. Williams had 6, tied with Eckler for targets. And here's the nugget / ties into this conversation. Keenan Allen had more receiving yards with 98 than all of the other Chargers had combined with 97.
It used to be Guyton. Used to be their speedy, deep threat. They'd shoot it to him a few times a game. But then, Mike Williams really came on earlier in the year. Yeah, they got to figure something out. 5-4, 2-3.
And think about it. When a defense is not respecting that deep threat, they can condense the defense too. So then you have players like Eckler, who are one of the best running backs in the NFL, also get slowed down. Eckler had 14 touches for only 59 scrimmage yards. He did score a touchdown, but you can contain the game if you don't have to worry about the deep ball.
Can we talk about the fact that Justin Jefferson is still good?
Let's go back to the Vikings side. Absolutely. Just pepper Jefferson with targets. Some fantastic plays and catches in this one.
He's absolutely incredible. I feel like every single time I turn on the Vikings, it used to be like, oh, wow, this Dalvin Cook is great. But now I can't. Well, man, I feel like I don't want to like Justin Jefferson because the Eagles botched that situation so poorly when we could have easily had him. Well, we're like, now let's get Jalen Reagor. But besides that, he's just so darn good, and I hate it.
9 for 143. That is the recipe. They get it. And Cousins, one more stat. Guess who leads the NFL right now in 2021 touchdown to interception ratio? I
feel like I know the answer because of the way that you set it up.
Exactly. I kind of led there.
But that's incredible. I would not have guessed.
Freaking Cousins, 18-2. 18 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Best touchdown to interception ratio in the NFL for starting quarterbacks. All right. That's a good nugget to move on. Another teaser for Hires and Flyers. So let's go ahead and jump over to Nashville, where the Saints went to Tennessee, and turn it over to Tommy for that one.
You would think that with the other slate of games we have, that this one, looked to be decent, but to me, it was just so boring. The final score was 23-21 in favor of the Titans, but all I really got out of this game was just it. I think this accentuated how bad the refs are recently. Maybe it's recency bias, but it really shined in this game. There's just a lot of blown calls, a lot of excessive calls. It just didn't make sense. The flow of this game while I was watching it was terrible. And no one even really stood out that much. I guess Marcus Johnson looked pretty solid over on Tennessee. He had 5 catches for 100 yards. Pretty solid. But, I mean, A.J. Brown, 1 catch for 16 yards. He ran and got rushed once. But other than that, Tennessee's defense looked fine. The biggest takeaway for me personally was the fact that, yeah, Tennessee obviously lost Derrick Henry, the whole identity of their team. But for some reason, that woke up the defense. And they're like, all right, let's actually play team football. So it's really nice to see because, as we know, Julio, I think, is on the IR or something like that. A.J. Brown really hasn't been playing as, I mean, he has off and on games, but sometimes he completely disappears for whether it be injury or whatever have you. But they went up against the Saints, and they did have Trevor Siemian in, who honestly looked pretty solid this game too. He's not the reason the Saints lost, but overall, the Titans beat a team led by Trevor Siemian. They didn't even have Alvin Kamara on the other side either. So as much as I want to be like, oh my God, the Titans are 8-2 right now, they're all right. I feel like they're rallying and doing what they need to do. They're still a solid team without Derrick Henry, but overall, not too much for me to take away. But how about you guys? Did you guys catch any of this game?
Well, I still have concerns long term for the Titans, but I can't. They keep winning. That's a well-coached team. That's the sign of a well-coached team. This is a team that has 2 weeks in a row has not really moved the ball that well. Yes, they've won both games, but their offense hasn't looked great. As you mentioned, A.J. Brown with a single catch. Julio was out. They don't have Derrick Henry. Haven't really been able to establish a run game. Their defense wasn't really able to stop Siemian. Really, the main difference in this game are a couple things. One, the Saints missed 2 extra points. They literally lost by 2. And then there was a really bad roughing the passer call on the Saints where the guy, he brushed Siemian. It didn't even fall to the ground. I don't even think he fell down. And the Saints intercepted the Ryan Tannehill in the end zone. And it was overturned because of one of the worst roughing the passer calls maybe that I've ever seen. And then the Titans actually ended up scoring a touchdown a couple plays later. So
terrible roughing.
But long term, that makes me concerned for the Titans. And I've been saying every week that I'm concerned for the Titans, and they keep winning. So, hey, look, I'm the fool. I'm the idiot. The team is playing well above where they should. But it just feels like eventually it's going to come back to bite them. Now, they have one of, if not the easiest schedules in the NFL remaining. So maybe it won't bite them until playoff time. But something to keep in mind, something to monitor. Okay, Will has no thoughts, so let's go to Will.
My thought is, I'm now surprised. I just read the news that the Ravens cut Le'Veon Bell. It's like,
what does that have to do with the Titans? Are you saying the Titans should sign Bell? Is that your tie-in here?
I mean, is anybody going to sign him? He's
Tommy,
pretty bad.
I think Will's just not paying attention to us until we call on him.
Classic. I just love the little awkward signs. We're like, all right, are we going or what's going on? Then Will just pops and be like, yo, Lev Bell got cut. I love Billy.
Real quick, Anthony, on all those painkillers, feel free to just be, free flowing with your sound drops. We haven't really heard much. Did you fall asleep?
No, don't tell him to do that. Don't tell him to do that. Oh my God. See?
Just play whatever, especially when Will's talking.
Just get sound buttons.
There's double pick. Yeah.
I mean, the surprising thing about the Titans is how well that that defense has been playing, given how bad we thought their secondary was going to be to start the year, right? And I mean, that's making it, right? And I think that Mike Vrabel is proving his coaching chops this year for sure. Interesting fun fact, I started reading the book, It's Better to Be Feared by Seth Wickersham. And it talks about the Tom Brady and Patriots dynasty. Funny that I would be interested in that. And on there, it talks about Brady's last game versus the Titans and how Vrabel basically, they're frenemies, I guess, used that stuff and how he motivated his team to win that game and all of the stuff that they say behind the scenes. So I really like Mike Vrabel. I think he especially if the Titans do anything this year, he's doing a hell of a job. I mean, A.J. Brown had 4 targets, 1 catch for 16 yards, right? And they figured out a way to win on the legs of Adrian Peterson, Dante Foreman, Jeremy McNichols, and a rush from Ryan Tannehill. 5 rushes from Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, no, I'm a believer in Vrabel. I'll say that. This has been a good opportunity for him to show his coaching skills with a lot of things working against him. And look, they're the number 1 seed in the AFC. Not just the AFC South, but the entire AFC. So I'll keep voicing my doubts, and I'll probably keep getting proven wrong. Will, let's go ahead and move to speaking of the AFC South, Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Indianapolis Colts.
Yep.
What did you see in this game that you didn't cover, but we're supposed to?
What are you talking
Well,
about?
tell us, give us your in-depth analysis
I think
on a game that you were assigned to cover but didn't.
Of course I covered it.
Okay, tell us then.
Jamal Agnew is a stud. He's not a stud. He's really bad. Dan Arnold is the number 1 receiver in Jacksonville. That's actually true, which is surprising. I mean, I don't know what you want to say. Here's the takeaway from this game and every game. By the way, I didn't watch this game. Jonathan Taylor's good at football.
Surprise.
Michael Pittman is also good at football. The Jaguars are really bad. And
They covered, though.
And
Jacksonville covered for
James
what it's worth.
Robinson wasn't healthy and is pretty good. And Dan Arnold.
Do you at least have the box score up? Can you at least
Yeah, of course.
tell our listeners what the score was? Can you do that much?
Yeah, it was 17-23, and the Colts won. What more do
There
you
you
want?
go. There you go.
Listen.
Apparently
listen.
nothing more is
You
what I
come
want.
to the Pigskin Party Podcast for quote-unquote real analysis, and you're getting it. You're getting it right here. Real analysis mixed with whatever.
I will concur that there is not a lot to take out of this game, other than I expected the Colts to cover, and the Jags didn't. The Jags defense has looked surprisingly okay. When I say that, I mean, like, I expected. They've been putrid for most of the season. The past couple weeks, Bills last week, Colts this week, they're not necessarily the biggest problem. The offense still has a lot of issues, but the Colts won at home as expected.
Well, Dan Arnold is your leading receiver. Like, where was Marvin Jones? Like, where was Laviska?
Trevor Lawrence still does. I'm not sure that this is. I know this is not entirely on him. I think that situation he's in, the coaching staff is really not doing their best to develop him. This is a coaching staff that's never developed an NFL quarterback. They've only worked with college quarterbacks. So, little concerning.
Yeah, you hope that Trevor Lawrence, like, so
I guess
Josh
Bevel
Allen,
has, but still.
Josh Allen is the poster boy for when talent meets good coaching, right? And you think about what would be the 180-degree opposite of that. You hope it's not Justin Fields. It's actually not proving to be Justin Fields. It might actually be Trevor Lawrence when talent meets bad coaching and what happens in the NFL. So it remains to be seen, how the T-Law story plays out.
Will be an interesting case study, especially if somehow Urban does get, leave after a year, if all of a sudden his play picks up next year.
Also, Jonathan Taylor's good at football.
Jonathan Taylor is extremely good at football, maybe the best there is at the running back position. Certainly the best healthy one at this moment. Chubb and Henry are not technically healthy, so that's why I said healthy. That's right. Let's move on.
You guys know Boston Scott exists, right?
I like Boston Scott. He's fun to
I
watch.
love Boston Scott, dudes.
So we're not going to talk about Boston Scott at this moment. What we are going to talk about... Oh, nice. I don't know who we're shooting, Anthony, but I just... You have
shooting
down
my
idea.
idea.
Second time. There's no need to do it.
No, he's
a
shooting
second
because the Lions are about to come up in our discussion.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. He's reading
He's
the
trying
show
to put
notes.
it down, old Yeller
Yes.
style.
So apparently, we cover soccer because we have to cover a tie. Good thing it's not me, Tommy. Tell us more.
Wait, hang on. Before Tommy talks, I will say that before this game started, Anthony was feeling really good and confident. And he's like, Will, got 50 bones on the Lions, make it happen. And then my bookie decided, nah, we're just going to give you your money back. Like, we don't even want you to bet on this game because it's a tie. They didn't take it. They didn't win. You didn't lose. They just gave me my money back. And they're like, please don't bet on the Lions anymore.
Anthony,
Sir, go get help.
We'll get to the picks and the flavor of the week, but Anthony, this was one of his 3 locks. He locked the Lions to beat the Steelers, and you know what? You kind of
Hey,
got it right.
Anthony, if you ever met Jared Goff, what sound effect would you use to describe the experience?
He's thinking.
Now he's slow. No,
there
we go.
Would you like?
That was
Would you like tell him how sad you are in him? Like I was expecting shotgun.
Yeah, like watching you play makes me want to shoot myself.
So Tommy, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this game at all, but
all I'm going to say is I'm going to keep it very short and say no one wanted to win this game. Many times the Steelers were gifted. Be like, here you go. Detroit is literally laying down and rolling over saying, just end it. I just want this over. And the Steelers are like, nah, dude, you could have it. Fumble, miss, field goal, whatever, interception. You can have it. It didn't make any sense. Exactly, dude. So at one point, I was getting actually a little bit upset when it went to overtime because I realized that someone was going to. I was like, oh my God, the Steelers do not deserve to win. They better not win. And then the other side, I was like, dude, if the Lions get their first win like this, they're going to be partying as if they played well, but they're just garbage. And then, so the end score made me so happy. It's like, thank goodness. This is the perfect game to be in a tie. Because when you watch just 1 minute of it, you're like, yep, this is what a tie game looks like in the NFL. And I'm so glad that's how it ended. That's my only takeaway.
Did you see that Najee Harris was like surprised when the game ended? And they're like, no, we're done. Let's go. And he's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, he's like,
no,
yo.
we tied. And he goes, I didn't know you could tie.
He didn't know you could tie.
Classic. I guess he didn't watch McNabb play either because he said the same exact thing.
Wait, refresh me here. But I'm remembering, was it a year ago? Like the first game of the year was the Lions Cardinals that tied? Am I remembering that wrong? Or
that was 2019, I believe. That was Hawkinson's first game. Yeah,
and I remember going like, way to kick off the year, Lions. Like the
that was Kyler Murray's first game too. That was Kyler Murray, rookie season.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And they tied. Yeah.
Way to go, Lions.
Good job, guys.
I'm sure I speak for everyone in saying we don't need to say anything more about this game.
No, we're done.
I wish ties did not exist. The end.
I wish the Lions didn't exist.
Oh, poor Anthony. Yeah, there you go. Shoot, Will. You can feel free to do a few of those.
No, that was at the Lions.
Let's go to Arizona, where the Carolina Panthers had two certain players come back in different capacities, 34-10 over the Arizona Cardinals, right after we saw Colt McCoy in relief of Kyler Murray last week against San Francisco, a game that I was at. Looked very efficient, not otherworldly, but he ran the offense well. The 49ers couldn't seem to slow down the Cardinals offense at all. Then they go to Carolina, and Colt McCoy goes 11 for 20 for wait for it, 107 yards, an interception. Panthers had 4 sacks. McCoy actually got injured, and Chris Streveler, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name right because I've never heard of this guy. Chris Streveler comes in, doesn't do much better, 36 whole passing yards. The Panthers welcomed back Mr. Cameron Newton.
I'm back!
First 2 plays, rejoining the team that drafted him, the team where he won MVP, the team where he went to the Super Bowl. First 2 plays were touchdowns. First a running touchdown near the goal line, and then a passing touchdown. And all reports are that the Panthers are preparing as though Cam Newton will be starting in Week 11. I'm all for it. Not much else to say about this game. Christian McCaffrey, the other guy I was hinting at that came back, absolutely looked exactly like he has at his peak.
No bias. He's just the best running back in the NFL. He's so good. No bias.
He missed almost all of last season and has missed most of this season, and none of it mattered. He looked a little rusty last week in his first game back, but this game, only 13 carries, 95 yards, 7.3 yards per carry. He also caught 10 balls on 10 targets, so all 10 balls thrown his way for 66 more yards. So you're talking about over 150 scrimmage yards on 23 touches, and some of the moves he made was just fantastic. He actually had one touchdown, but it was they said they called it back because he was out at the one, or else he would have had a score. But he looked as explosive and elite as ever. But yeah, this was absolutely a story of here's another one. Colt McCoy is really just a backup, and there's a reason he's a backup. And he might have played well last week, but he was brought back down to earth.
He's a backup.
The one thing I want to maybe even throw it to you guys on this. With Cam back, and granted, he threw 4 passes. He played a handful of plays, but he's a clear upgrade over both P.J. Walker and Sam Darnold. If this defense plays like this, as it stands this very instant, the Panthers are the 7 seed. Do we think that keeps up? Do we think the Panthers make the playoffs?
Oh, yeah. Do they do anything?
No, yeah.
No. I said
okay.
I think I said, oh, yeah. I thought you were gonna get like Do the Panthers have a shot? No, they don't. But yeah, they got a shot to make the playoffs. Sure.
Do we think
Yeah,
how much do we think, Tommy, I'll ask you this specifically. How much do we think Cam boosts this offense?
All right. We all know what we saw when we saw Cam Newton try to do his thing over in New England. But honestly, okay, I understand what I'm about to say is hypocritical. But when I saw him play in this preseason, when he convinced me that, he's getting better and he's understanding the playbook, the New England offense is notoriously known to be very, very tricky. And I was like, all right, it all makes sense. And I saw him actually look pretty decent. I don't think that he's good. That's not what I'm saying. But what I think that he does for the whole Carolina team, like the NFL is a better place when Cam Newton's playing for the Panthers and he's starting. Like, you don't want to see Cam just sitting on the bench, and just to see him come home, quote unquote, screaming, "I'm back." His confidence at an all-time high.
Totally worth the taunting penalty he got for it too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so it's just like one of the moments sitting there being like, holy crap. Like, no, I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl or anything, but these are one of the cool moments to say, if they were to ever rally, if they were to do anything like that, like, why not? So I think the playoffs are definitely in the picture. And also remember, when Cam Newton won MVP, all that kind of stuff, I mean, he had Christian McCaffrey there right next to him, so he definitely knows how to utilize him.
That's the thing. I think that he didn't have a Christian McCaffrey in New England at all, nor did he have, like, very competent receivers.
No Robbie Anderson, no DJ Moore.
And he's not Mac Jones, which we can all agree on, who is the fit for that offense, right? Like, he's the guy. So is he going to be a stud when he comes back to Carolina? Probably not, but he's going to be he belongs in Carolina. Like, when you think Panthers, you think Cam Newton, right? Like, you don't think
right.
Sam
looks
Darnold.
Right in the NFL world with Cam in a Carolina jersey number 1.
Right, exactly. But I think having a healthy Christian McCaffrey will alleviate a lot off a quarterback, right? Like, the checkdowns, the runs, how good he is, it just takes so much pressure off of you. And I think Robbie Anderson with his face said it best. The meme where he's looking at Sam Darnold like have you seen that meme? He's looking at Sam
but
Darnold,
I know Anderson has issues with Darnold, yeah.
Like that, and then he's looking at Cam with like loving eyes, smiling as they score touchdowns together. I mean,
Robbie Anderson must be like, I can't
Robbie
escape
Anderson
this
caught
guy.
A touchdown. It's amazing. Like, when was he ever relevant ever? So we'll see. And then
he was with Teddy. Teddy threw to him a lot. Anderson was having a great year with Teddy last year. Anyway, the one boost for sure we can count on is in the locker room. There were a number of players who were quoted as saying that the energy was so high with Cam back in the building. You saw it on his first rushing touchdown. The whole team went over there and started dancing with him. Here's the nugget I'll leave with this game. Carolina has fewer than 200 pass yards in 6 straight games, the longest such streak since 2010. And by the way, as a reminder, they drafted Cam Newton number 1 overall in 2011. So since before Cam, they've never gone this many games with fewer than 200 yards. So we'll see next week as a starter if Cam can break that streak. All right, let's keep on rolling. Next up, let's go ahead and jump back to Will, who's for some reason is covering Tommy's Eagles. That's the beauty of the draft. At the Denver Broncos. Will, I do recall you picked Denver in this one, correct?
Nope. No, I picked the Eagles.
Did you pick Philly? Okay.
I sure did.
You're known to lie and change picks. So, I mean, with the whole Packers thing. So who knows if that's right or not.
So I have a lot of thoughts about this game. I clearly studied it in depth to prepare.
As you do.
Before I bestow my knowledge upon all the listeners, I'd like Tommy to go ahead and talk about his thoughts of the game.
Oh, are you sure, bud?
Master deflector there.
Are you sure, bud? You don't want to. You don't want to take the reins.
Being complete.
I think Tommy should be polite as much as he loves his Eagles and throw it right back to Will.
I mean, I would love nothing more to talk about the Birds, but I would hate to do too much talking, which I'm known for. So please, Will, I would love to default.
What a gentleman Tommy is. Will, proceed.
I mean, here's the thing, right?
Here's the thing.
30 to 13.
It was the same time as my other game.
I mean, really. Let's just look at the box. let's screw the
Let's just look at the box score.
And let's just look at the box score and let's talk about the insights we can glean from.
Let's just read what we can read on the screen and go from there.
I love
the Denver number 1 receiver is Albert Aquidbugnum with 4 receptions.
Oh, that was just first of all Alberto. Second of all, that was a butchering of his last name.
Aquidbugnum, right? Aquidbugnum.
Just
whatever.
Sure.
He's your number 1 receiver with 77 yards. I think we all kind of predicted, or I did. I think Noah Fant was my pick. Didn't have a stellar game, but like Devonte Smith is BS on his touchdowns, and the Eagles running backs are a mess, as they always been, with their even carry distribution of 12, 11, and 14 carries between 2 running backs and Jalen Hurts and Kenneth Gainwell.
Well, when you say it's a mess, from a non-fantasy perspective, it's actually great. And the Eagles have found a running game, which is what I was saying all year that they should do. They kind of lucked into that. But proceed, Will.
What is anything if not from a fantasy perspective?
Okay, fair enough.
And then
that is a fair point.
Teddy Bridgewater is mediocre, and that's all
also fair.
That's all you need to know.
And
but I mean,
tackles even when he has a shot at one.
Oh yeah, where he just kind of like watched, and I was like, that's such a veteran thing to do.
So I'll announce that play, and then you continue, Will, with your riveting analysis.
I was just gonna say the Broncos were riding high off that Dallas game, right? And like, just I think didn't we even say that like that was one of those games that we just got to throw out? Like the Broncos played well, the Cowboys played really bad, and here we are back to the Eagles, who are Like, are the Eagles good? I'm confused.
Nope. As a true Eagles fan that has watched every single snap, second, and formation of the Eagles, they are not a good team.
They've trounced bad teams, which
yes,
might say
they
something
have.
About the Broncos. They trounced the Falcons, the Lions. They did play competitive with the Chargers, but the Chargers actually haven't.
But hold on. I want to be on the record to say this is what I told everyone at the beginning of the season. They're like, no, they're one of the worst teams. I'm like, no, they are bad. But they're not as bad as you guys think, and I think now that's showing.
That's
I mean,
fair.
they're 4-6. Some people didn't even know if they're going to win 4 games. I was like, once again, I'm not picking them as a playoff team, not at all. Obviously, when we did the NFC coverage,
I was
didn't
picking
even
them
have
as
them.
one of the worst teams in the NFL, and clearly,
in the complete NFL. I was like, no, they're not that bad. They are bad,
Right.
but not that bad. But I will.
They're no
unfortunately
Detroit Lions by any.
They're
means.
no, come on, they're not even playing the same sport. Oh, I was trying to get a
Anthony,
sound drop out.
we're just teeing it up for him. There you go. So the play in question that we referenced briefly, it was I think it was Melvin Gordon who had the ball fumbled. Darius Slay picks it up, then drops it, then picks it up again.
Yep.
Point being, there was a few seconds to be able to ascertain if you're on the other side of the ball, i.e. Teddy Bridgewater, exactly what's going on. And not only does Teddy not try to make the tackle when Slay is running towards the touchdown, he seemed to go in the other direction. So he's like, I'm good.
He just literally dipped. He was like, I'm
good
out.
job with the fumble recovery. Great job, guy. Back, and I had the Eagles defense in one of my season-long leagues, so that was a nice welcome addition.
I mean, when have the Eagles never been this team of a weird running back committee with a extremely like mediocre downfield passing game? Like, is that all we're gonna ever see out of the Philadelphia Eagles? I mean, like, look at.
Excuse me, we won a Super Bowl not too long ago. Thank you.
Yeah, whatever.
I did.
Look at these receiving numbers. Devonta Smith, 4 catches, 2 touchdowns. Of course he had, because you played him in fantasy for no reason.
Excuse me.
4 catches for 33 yards. Dallas Goedert, 2 for 28. Jack Stoll. Who is Jack Stoll? Who is that?
You don't know who Jack Stoll is?
These are like. Heart.
He's like our crappy tight end dude.
Yeah, so it's just like, I don't know, man. What a boring team.
Yo, this is peak winning. If you might not like it, but that's what it is. But in all seriousness, you guys are right though. They're not.
Let's get your any Eagles thoughts on this game, or this was just like played out as expected. Eagles beat a bad team. Broncos are
no, yeah. I've been very outspoken. I don't like the Broncos. I don't believe in Vic Fangio, and I just don't think that. I didn't think it was that close on paper, so easily I picked the Eagles. But once again, if you throw out the game where they beat the Cowboys, I'm throwing out this game. Oh, the Eagles scored 30 points and they blah blah. Nah, I mean they won against a bad team. That's all the analysis we really need. Oh, also Miles Sanders should be coming back soon, and we have been running a lot more. So hey, hopefully for those of you who like fantasy football, maybe I'll translate. But as an Eagles fan, I'll say don't get too optimistic. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, they'll just use 5 running backs instead of 4. So they'll all be
Exactly.
evenly distributed. All right, moving over to Foxborough Stadium, the New England Patriots Browns, a game that, regardless of who you pick to win, I think we all thought would be like a 17-13 kind of defensive slugfest. Was not that at all. Will, you were picked to cover this game. Give us your riveting, made-up, reading the screen analysis.
Yep, I was not actually. That was Tommy because you can't read your screen. However,
you're right.
Talk about this game.
No, that was Tommy.
I will talk about this game.
I'm just eager to have Will do his fake analysis. So
listen. You're gonna get every dollar worth that you pay me out of my analytical.
All these nuggets.
If you do a good job, you'll get extra nuggets. I'm just saying.
Thank you. You can have 2 of my nuggets on your face. Anyway, so listen. Here's the thing. The Patriots have found gold with these 2 running backs, right? And that's a thing that Sony Michel was not it. I'm glad they shipped him off. Rex Burkhead was okay, but they didn't really use him that well. Harris and Stevenson are really, really good. And these receivers that they got are serviceable. Shout out to Jacoby Myers. He's like
finally.
There we go.
First NFL touchdown. First touchdown total since he was in college in 2018.
That's incredible. That's just incredible. So, but I mean, Ramondre, 20 carries for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. You know, the Browns are the Browns. They do have some great running back play. You know, our boy Dernst was probably the most obvious fantasy play of the entire week, and paid.
That's to Ernest Johnson, who don't understand Billy's slang.
Dernst, his name's Dernst Johnson. But anyway, no, I mean, surprising score, very surprising score. But I think it's just a credit to New England playing off the defense and then just kind of hammering the run game, and it's made Mac Jones, much more efficient than he would have to be if he just had to keep slinging the ball down the field. They didn't.
Tommy, apologies for not throwing this to you first, as you were the one drafted to watch this game. Let's get some deep analysis from you.
McCorkle is for real. Everyone gets saying, well, he looks the best so far as all the, out of all the... No, he is the best quarterback.
At this point. Yeah.
So far as a rookie, he's outshining some veterans, the amount of poise. He went 19 of 23. And when you hear that, you're like, oh, he had 4 incomplete passes. No, these were deliberate incomplete passes, or it was all things that veterans do, whether it was throwing the ball away, throwing it at the feet of a receiver during a screenplay because it just wasn't there and it wasn't worth throwing a hospital ball. He was making poised decisions, and he had 3 touchdowns on top of that. So he had a near perfect game. And for someone who was trying to think, all right, what is New England going to be? They have Bill Belichick, so automatically him, and give him any defense. He could manufacture some wins, but now you have a quarterback, at least his rookie year, doing exactly what they need him to do. They just need a quarterback that could be a game manager or just not lose him the game. And Mac Jones so happens to be perfect for that, and he could be good enough to win you games on top of that. He definitely won't lose it. So kind of like what we were saying before, saying, yeah, Cam just... It's not that he's a bad quarterback, but Mac is just perfect for kind of the McDaniels offense right now. And so that was my biggest takeaway. Yes, unfortunately, the Browns just looked terrible. They have the COVID thing going. They don't have Odell. They have just a lot of things circulating. Everyone thought, oh my gosh, the Browns don't need him. Baker Mayfield has all this swag, but Baker Mayfield is just playing so banged up. He always looks like he's hurt. So it was just kind of the perfect storm right now. And the final box score and the 45-7. That is an absolute blowout, and it surprises you. But then if you really look at it, be like, oh, this was kind of the perfect storm right now. I feel like if these 2 teams were to match up and play again, I wouldn't expect it to be this out of hand. But overall, you gotta give it up for McCorkle. No more excuses. He is a darn good quarterback.
No, you say that. But who had a better game than Mac Jones? Brian Hoyer.
Can't think of anyone.
Brian Hoyer, who came in relief of Mac Jones.
1 touchdown with a perfect 158.3 passer rating.
You're right. McCorkle is just a system quarterback. Get him out of there.
Put Hoyer in.
He's washed.
We have a clip of Will with the turkey on his head saying that if Kyle Shanahan at number 3 in the 49ers drafted Mac Jones, his day he should like quit his job. I don't remember what the clip is, but
I thought Mac Jones sucked, and I was completely wrong.
I was a huge Mac Jones truther. Brian, I always say to everyone in my group chat saying, hey, ask Darren. He knows how much of I was so big on Mac Jones before Mac Jones was even like a first round prospect in the NFL. I was so high on him. And then that one random shirtless picture came out with him in the cigar, and he just looks like some fat dude. I'm just like, this is the guy that I love. So it just brings me so much happiness that he's panning out so far.
The last game of the main slate, Lambeau Field, snowy Lambeau. Well, there was snow coming down the frozen tundra. But man, two future Hall of Fame quarterbacks, both coming off of various ailments. One with a broken finger and Russell Wilson, and another with COVID, having a fake vaccine or whatever you want to call it with Aaron Rodgers. And man, the result of the game certainly reflected that. It was 3-0 to start the fourth quarter. This was the lowest score at halftime of any NFL game this year. This was the first time Russell Wilson has ever been shut out as a starter, period, in the NFL. That's 150 career games. 17-0 Green Bay wins. It was just, and this is a game where I just thought it would be exciting. You know, Russ coming back, maybe he'd be a little rusty, but he'd pick it up. I thought the Packers could be susceptible. The Packers defense has actually played really, really well lately. You know, say what you want about the Chiefs having their struggles, but the Packers contained them. Even with Jordan Love at quarterback, they were still in that game. The Packers defense has played really, really well. If that keeps, and without Jair Alexander, so they're only going to get better when he comes back. Not a lot to glean on this, although I think Russell Wilson wasn't as healed as he claimed to be. Finished with 161 yards, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns on 20 of 40, so only 50% completion. Not a lot going in the run game either. Not that Rodgers looked great either. He also had an interception. Just not. I don't know what to say about this. This is a game I expected to be much better. That ended up being, rather disappointing. But hey, the Packers get another win. They move to 8-2. The Seahawks just about dead in the water in the NFC. They'd have to really make a run, but they're sitting at 3-6.
Yeah, for all the takeaways that you said, I was strongly on board thinking that Aaron Rodgers was going to come back, put all the people that were talking about all his COVID stuff to rest, being like, all right, yeah, what more Aaron Rodgers thing to come back, just dominate, be like, all right, yeah, it doesn't matter what Aaron Rodgers did. He's very good at football, so whatever. And that didn't happen. So I was really surprised about that too. So like my takeaway isn't much at all either, but for me, it was a little surprising to see, all right, Aaron Rodgers, Devonte Adams, controversy. We've seen this before. And then it didn't really play out the way I thought it would. So interesting.
One big thing from this game, which ended up being less big than we initially thought, is Aaron Jones suffered an MCL sprain. It looked pretty bad. He was crying at one point when he came out of the medical tent. Thought it would be a much longer injury. Didn't matter because A.J. Dillon looked fantastic in his place. That's a guy who could absolutely lead an NFL franchise as a number one running back. He will get his chance at least for the next 1 to 2 weeks as Aaron Jones recovers. Seahawks, only 208 total yards of offense. It was just a 1 week blip, and then with another week of Russ removed from taking the pin out with social media, and he made this big thing about having the pin in his finger removed. First time they were shut out since week 2 of 2011. There's your nugget.
Do you think that him being
10
out,
years?
Do you think that Russell Wilson being out, he came back and he was rusty?
Oh, really? That was bad. These are the jokes
Brian is so disappointed that you said that
1 year
joke.
Anniversary of the PPP.
No,
That's the best
hang
you
on.
can come up with?
Yeah, rusty, because it's like he's not sharp, but also it's a play in his name.
I get it. It's just not good.
No, it's just.
I like it more when Will explains the joke for me. This is I like this.
Let's move on. We
Subscribe.
got 2 primetime games left to cover. Sunday night, Kansas City Chiefs 41, Las Vegas Raiders 14. Mahomes with 5 touchdowns. Kelsey scored. Hill scored 2 touchdowns. Are the Chiefs back? Daryl Williams.
I was told they were washed. I was told they figured them out. What happened?
So here's one of the things that the Chiefs have had problems with, and I do think there's a big mental side of this, but one of the reasons they got into this rut is teams playing an excessive amount of too high shell defenses. meaning cover 2, cover 4, cover 6, where you've always got at least 2 high safeties. You cover the deep third of the field, and then spread out zone in the middle. You rush very few passers, if any, maybe just rushing 4, and then just make Mahomes be patient and take the underneath and take what's there. And it is, Mahomes admitted that it was frustrating him, that that's not his nature to play that way, but there has been a blueprint to stopping the Chiefs. So what do the Raiders do? They play single high on over 80% of their defensive coverage calls. And what did the Chiefs do? Oh, this is easy. This is what we're used to. They turn into the old Chiefs and absolutely trounce the Raiders. So to be seen whether Dan Quinn and the Cowboys, and we'll talk about that when we do our game previews and picks in the flavor of the week, we'll go back to that kind of too high shell. But clearly the Raiders were not paying attention to what the rest of the NFL was doing to slow down Mahomes. But the question is, does this give Mahomes and the Chiefs the confidence boost they need to get the cobwebs out and like, okay, yeah, this is what we're capable of doing?
I could tackle this real quick. I was actually very surprised on the way that Kansas City handled the Raiders because, as you guys know, I watched the Kansas City game with a little extra attention because my wife is a huge fan. We lived in Kansas City for a little bit. And so anytime the Chiefs are playing, I pay a little extra attention. And I know the Chiefs well enough to the point where they always struggle against the Raiders. Maybe it's the interdivisional game, whatever have you. But the Raiders have always had the Chiefs number for some reason. So even with this game coming up, I was a little bit worried because of how they were playing. But for some reason, just like you said, Bri, the whole NFL has some type of blueprint, but the Raiders are like, nah, man, we don't need that. We're the Raiders. We always play them hard, so we're just going to do our own thing. And they got decimated, and I was like, what in the world are they doing? So it's kind of like a catch-22 to me. I feel like most teams will be like, well, yep, this is what happens when you don't kind of do that, too high shell defenses, kind of make them beat you underneath, all the checkdowns. Like, that's how, if we were to lose to the Chiefs, let's lose that way on our terms, because we were going to lose to them anyway if we didn't play that way. And so for right now, it's kind of weird to be like, all right, I don't understand why you guys saw that it wasn't working, kept staying with it. But for the most part, I think the takeaway is not only did the Chiefs win in convincing fashion, but hey, I think the biggest knock that everyone kept saying, no, it's Patrick Mahomes, he'll be back. I think it was a confidence factor. So even if other teams continue to play frustrating defense against Mahomes, I think this has to be at least a little bit of a confidence boost. And we all know what momentum and confidence can do in such a, razor sharp sport like football. So I feel like that should be enough to hopefully move them in the right direction, but only time will tell.
I will say also that the Chiefs defense has been playing better as of late. They've been able to move Chris Jones back into the inside. Melvin Ingram made a couple plays now that he's a member of the Chiefs. They just seem to be getting it together at the right time. So if this offense can get that swag back that we know that they're capable of, and this defense plays a little better, the Chiefs are now in first again. All this talk about the Chiefs done. They're 6-4, but they are in first in the AFC West. Speaking of the AFC West, here's a couple nuggets for you. Chiefs straight road games versus AFC West opponents. The last time they lost, Week 7 of 2017 at Las Vegas. And the Chiefs have won 13 of their last 16 games versus the Raiders. So maybe it's just the Raiders, just the Chiefs are just in their head, living rent-free, as Tommy liked to say.
I think that we have seen for so long the Chiefs be just utterly dominant. They didn't change offensive coordinators. Like, yeah, they went on a little bit of a slide. I think this and maybe one more week were going to be, you're either going to go one way or the other. They're either going to come back, right, and prove that, no, like we are who we have been and we're good, or they would have played a really horrible, sloppy, maybe kind of win against the Raiders, and I think then we would have been a little worried about the Chiefs. We were really close. I would say this was probably the week. And the resounding answer was the Chiefs are fine.
And are now in the driver's seat to win their division just like they always do. Let's move to the final game of the Week 10, and that is the Los Angeles Rams traveling to Levi's Stadium to play the San Francisco 49ers. I was at this game. It was fun, and my first time being at a Monday Night Football game live. Obviously, I didn't have a cheering stake. I didn't really care which team won other than I picked the Rams. But a fun atmosphere. What I'll say is the 49ers, kudos to them, coming off that embarrassing loss to Colt McCoy last week at home. the Niners coming into this game had lost 11 of their last 12 at Levi's Stadium, which is also embarrassing for their fans. But they came out pumped. Matt Stafford threw a deep interception on a really bad lofted attempted bomb to new Ram Odell Beckham Jr., and that kind of turned the tide. They also had a pick six where it bounced off of Tyler Higbee's arms directly into the arms of the safety, Jimmy Ward, who was able to run it in. So the Niners were able to get out to a lead early and then just played smart Shanahan football, mixing the game up. Deebo Samuel, absolute stud, scored a rushing and receiving touchdown, but just broke tackles left and right. He's just such a tough runner. When he's healthy, he's one of the best with the ball in his hands after the catch. Not a lot to glean. I think similar to the Titans game, when the Rams kind of get down quick, they almost seem to get knocked off kilter. Maybe that's a Stafford thing, but they don't seem to be. You've said that about Lamar in the past. They don't seem to be built. When they're not the team that's doing the dominating, they kind of get in their own heads a little bit. What do you think, Tommy? Am I not on? Tommy? Did we lose Tommy?
I think we did.
Tommy's frozen. Okay, Will, we'll go to you. What'd you think of this game that you probably didn't watch?
I didn't watch it.
That's why I said, what do you think of it? Read the box score.
Right. I know. I thank you. I think we can all kind of speak to. I just what I said about the what did I talk about? The Chiefs before, right? I think we're kind of in that place a little bit with the Rams, right? You know, who are the Rams, right? Like they looked great at times. They've had some really sort of confusing losses, and I think this is one of them as they go to look forward. You know, I did see some highlights and Stafford do some really just weird things in the game. Cooper Kupp is still dominant, but they're going to need a number two. You know, Odell hasn't had time to really acclimate to anything. Is it going to be Van Jefferson? Is it going to be Odell? Like, who knows? But they're going to need something other than Cooper Kupp. Then
Jefferson made some nice plays. He also had a pretty bad drop at one point, right in his hands. Kupp was still great. I mean, they just pepper him with targets and he catches everything. Right. Henderson looked pretty good. I think it was more that the Rams got punched in the mouth early and they just weren't able to recover. And the Niners just came out with the game plan, stuck to it, and executed well.
I mean, Debo's been on fire this year, though. And Elijah Mitchell, look, you know, I mean, from what happened here, you know, pretty solid, and we've seen that a number of times. So, I don't know, man. I think at 7-3, the Rams are sort of at a crossroads too, a little bit, on where we see them go.
Well, especially after their last two losses. So the first loss to the Cardinals. We get it. The Cardinals, one of the best teams, or have been one of the best teams in the NFL so far. But then they lost to the Titans, who are good, but it was the way they lost. The Titans didn't put up much yards of offense. Had that ugly pick six, had another pick six in this game. Stafford interceptions. It's just like when he gets off rhythm, the whole offense is affected. So, yeah, I agree with you. They're at a little bit of a crossroads. Obviously, they're extremely talented. They just got Odell Beckham Jr. They get him up to speed. Who knows what this offense could be. Tommy came back, but I have no idea if he still looks frozen. So, hey, we're live, you know. So that's anybody who's like maybe the one or two people who are watching this can laugh at Tommy's frozenness. But this is actually a good time because that wraps up the games, and then you and I, we can move on to our hires and flyers. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So our DFS hires and flyers presented by DraftKings. Football fans, who's ready to score some free bets? Now you can when you bet on any NFL game this week with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers who bet just $1 on either team to score. That's just score. Could be a field goal, could be a safety, doesn't matter. $1 on either team to score, and you can win $100 in free bets. When a team scores anything, you score. Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet. DraftKings won't leave you empty-handed. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports Contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. All you got to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, use promo code TPPN, bet $1 on either team to score, and win $100 in free bets. If they score, you score with promo code TPPN this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Tommy, do we have you? Are you there? Are you alive? Are you frozen?
I was able to hear you the whole time, but I don't
go.
think you guys are able to hear me. So that's
no. All we saw was your beautiful Asian face, just cold, just no reflection at all.
What is with the race?
That's an observant fact.
I just said facts that Drew Brees being white hindered him athletically. That's true.
You did. That is not what you said at all. That is not what you said.
Physical limitations, and I said because he's white. That's facts.
Tommy is a man of Asian descent. It is a fact. I just, that's it.
He's not wrong.
You are the one who had to turn it into.
All right, so we're gonna go to our hires and flyers. I'm gonna kick it off.
Well, let's for those. Hold on. This is why you're not the main host. You figure 1 year in, we would get the hang of it. For those who have not listened before or watched before, quick run through what the segment is. So we're sponsored by DraftKings. We give our daily fantasy hire and flyers each week using DraftKings prices. We will go to each position, a hire being somebody who's higher priced, who we think has a good matchup, good opportunity to produce, to pay off that high price, and a flyer is somebody who's lower priced, who we think is primed to return that value and more. So Will, since you're so impatient, I'll let you kick it off, hires and flyers.
Well, I also wanted to go first because you picked the same guy as me. So,
okay, fair enough.
Big brain move.
I'm just going to rehash.
I think just given the shootout nature of the game, a lot of people are going to be playing this game this week, and I think that you have to. I don't know what the Vegas line is on the game yet, but I think you could do way worse than Dak against Kansas City's defense at 7,200. That game should be fireworks, which means it's going to be a 6-9 game. Shout out Buffalo, but I think you have to assume that game is going to go that
The
way.
NFL Green Line didn't have the total points for this one listed, but they did have as a pick'em. So they're, at least as of Monday, there was not a favorite in Vegas. I would be shocked if this isn't at least like 52 points as far as the Vegas line there.
I will let you know in a second.
Did you say hold on a second?
No, I said I will let you know in a second.
Oh, you'll let you know in a second. I thought you were like, hold on a second. I'm like, bad podcasting. All right, well, I will go and just piggyback on the same thing.
Okay,
Dak
and
Prescott.
now interrupting you, I found out it is 56 points.
56. Wow.
And Kansas City is favored by 2.5.
Oh, so they did move it in the Chiefs' favor. Makes sense after their drubbing of the Raiders. Did you actually say Dak, or were you just talking about the game?
Oh, I said Dak.
Okay, all right. Well, I put Dak as well. 7,200 versus the Chiefs. He's averaging 24 points a game. This is just, put your Cowboys and your Chiefs in point total.
Because you didn't mention it, I will also say that you can consider Mahomes. I know that there are a lot of people that are going to be scared off Mahomes, but
could be a good contrarian pick then.
Tournament play for sure.
Tournament play, if that's the case. If people are, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people play Mahomes just by watching him throw 5 touchdowns and 400 yards against the Raiders, think he's back. And then there's going to be some people who are still scared because of the first 8 weeks of the season and how he has looked. I'll go ahead and do my flyer pick. My flyer pick mentioned earlier that the quarterback leading the NFL in touchdown to interception ratio at 18-2 is Mr. Kirk Cousins over in Minnesota. 6,100 versus the Packers defense. It's a divisional game, NFC North. The Packers defense, I was just saying how well they're playing, but at 6,100, Cousins is averaging 21 points per game. We mentioned Justin Jefferson, how well he played. You still have Thielen. Tyler Conklin has really come up. He scored 2 touchdowns this week, and you still have Dalvin Cook. You've got a lot of weapons. Cousins is playing very smart and very efficient, minimizing the risks. The Packers are going to be leading in all likelihood, so the Vikings will need to score to keep up. At 6,100, I really like that play for Kirk Cousins.
Don't hate it. I think, especially if he's going to start, I think you can go all the way to the bottom of the barrel. Again, not in cash, but in a tournament. And you could go crazy, and you could play Cam Newton against the football team that just lost Chase Young in a gruesome injury that I had to witness live. It was horrible. No human should ever go through that. Not even joking. That was really bad. I feel really bad for that guy. 5,100 versus the football team. Just for what he's going to get you on the ground. I mean, they're going to score points. Everybody that isn't Tom Brady can move the ball on their secondary. So, I think we're going to go with that.
I actually straight up really like that pick at that price. It's $1,000 less. As much as I like the Cousins pick, just his running alone should get Cam Newton 15 points, and then you've got 3x at that price. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
This is why I'm in first.
This is why you're in first. Okay. All right, Mr. First Place. I'll let you start with running back then. Let's see what you got.
Given who you chose, I'm going to go a little different and assume that this is assuming he's healthy, cleared of COVID. I'm going to go Nick Chubb versus Detroit. Detroit is still bad at football. The Browns are obviously bad at football too. But as Dernst just showed us, running backs on the Browns do really well, and Nick Chubb is a good running back on the Browns. 7,800 versus Detroit.
Christian McCaffrey, 8,900, going up against what has been a pretty decent Washington defense against the run, where you typically beat them is over through the air, but it doesn't matter. This is CMC. He's going to get touches. You saw what he did on 60% snap share. Only had 95 yards, over 150 scrimmage yards. Only 8,900. Seems like a lot, but when CMC was at his height, he was definitely pushing 10,000 and more on DraftKings. The fact that you could still get him under 9,000, just plug him in. It'll be worth it. And Flyer, how about some Daryl Williams love? Against the Cowboys, we mentioned that this game is going to be high scoring, and yes, it's probably going to be mainly through the air, but that doesn't matter. Daryl Williams just scored a receiving touchdown where he mossed Jonathan Abrams in the end zone. Gets a lot of targets for Mahomes. He has averaged over 18 points over the last 5 games. A lot of people don't. I feel like Daryl Williams is under the radar. He's only 5,400. Lots of points scored. He is the running back that you want on Kansas City, and he's getting usage in run and pass game. I really like that play.
Yeah, don't hate it. I didn't. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go James Conner versus Seattle. He's been doing really well. I'm probably not actually going to play James Conner. I'm probably going to play something different, but I don't think it's horrible given the usage that he's seen, given how bad Seattle was.
The NFL's touchdown leader right there.
In the Green Bay game, the running backs for Green Bay, Dylan had a massive game, so I think you could do worse at 6,100. Flipping over to wide receiver, I'm going to go for my hire, just a guy who's been on fire against a secondary that has played not as bad as you might think. Debo versus Jacksonville at 7,800 just had another great game in a game that San Fran should easily dominate.
I think this price is partly reflected of the fact that the Niners played on Monday night. I think he would have been over 8,000 after that 2-touchdown game against LA.
And I am not ever again going to pick the person that you are about to talk about.
I can't tell if you mean you're going to actually flip it or you're just teasing that we picked the same player again. Wide receiver for my hire, Stefan Diggs. I mentioned earlier in this episode, I think he's back. I think that loss to Jacksonville really woke Buffalo up, certainly seemed to wake Josh Allen up. And what happened when Allen woke up? He found Diggs for 8 receptions and well over 100 yards and a touchdown. 7,900, still under 8,000 versus Indianapolis. I think this could be a sneaky high-scoring game. Indianapolis is susceptible in the secondary. They have a pretty good run defense, so I could see this being the Bills just air the ball out. At 7,900, I still think that's a great play, and I think Diggs is going to put up some good numbers for the rest of the season. And I'm going to go ahead and jump on the flyer. You got to do the Dak pick first, so I get to do this pick first.
You stole this
Rashad
pick.
Bateman.
I made this pick first.
No, you didn't. I didn't even look at your picks. I don't ever look at your picks.
Whatever. It's Rashad Bateman. Why don't you talk about it?
I said Bateman. Rashad Bateman. 4,500 versus the Bears defense. Will actually mentioned when we were talking about the Ravens earlier that Bateman has actually looked solid. It's true. He's averaged 11-plus points the last 3 games. That might not seem like a lot, but when you're priced at only 4,500, I mean, that's really right at 3x with what he's averaging, and he's only going to get better, and Lamar is only going to get more comfortable. The Bears, decent against the
I
run.
thought you were going to say Lamar's only going to get worse. That was fun.
No, I like Lamar. I have not been a Lamar. You've been more, wishy-washy on Lamar than I have. And we all know Tommy is a Lamar stan, so he's always been backing him up. Bears defense more susceptible to the pass than the run, so I really like Bateman at 4,500 as my flyer pick at wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree. Flipping over to tight end, I'm going to go with my flyer first because this is not a week that I am spending up at tight end, so I'm going to go to the stalwart, the incredible Dan Arnold of Jacksonville, who is the leading receiver last week versus San Francisco, 4,100. I just don't know how you cannot play a guy like that with that sort of consistency at that price point. Tight end, you're generally punting anyway, unless you just have a slam dunk Kelsey-esque type matchup. And I think this is one of those weeks where you just punt it down to somebody who's in the floor. I also think that the other good pick, or one of the other good picks, is your flyer, believe it or not.
And I'm in complete agreement with you, and I will, in all likelihood, be going with a flyer tight end. I think there's some good options at this lower price point. Arnold is a fantastic option. I played him in my DraftKings winning lineup last week, which we'll talk about soon. Tyler Conklin, even $200 cheaper than Arnold at 3,900. He has been a favorite target, especially near the red zone for Kirk Cousins, who I mentioned earlier. If you want to do that Cousins play, great stack opportunity here. Once again, I think the Packers will be leading this game, so the Vikings will need to be passing to keep up. 3,900 tight end. My higher, agreed with Will, I probably won't put him in a lot of lineups, but if you do want to spend up and have a little bit more of a sure bet, George Kittle is back. Scored Monday night against the Rams, 6,300. Still not too bad. Kelsey was like in the mid-sevens at his peak against the Jaguars defense, who has been pretty poor against tight ends. All right, I'm going to jump into the. Did you give your higher already at tight end?
No, I like Kittle. I think if you're going to pivot from Kittle, just go with Andrews. Just a price play if you're going to be up. I think Kelsey's a great play, but he's a tournament play because that price of, I think it's 7,100 is just too high. It's too high to pay for a guy who's been off and on. You know, he probably will have a great game, but I just don't want to go there. Maybe in a tournament you could go there and try to make the rest of your lineup work, but I don't think you need to this week.
I'm going to kick off the defense section because my higher is my Miami Dolphins. First and maybe the only time I will recommend them as a defense has played much better as of late. They're averaging 17.5 points over the last two games. They're playing the Jets offense, who looked absolutely terrible. It could be Mike White or it could be Joe Flacco. Zach Wilson still doesn't seem to be quite ready to start. So it doesn't matter if it's White, doesn't matter if it's Flacco. The Dolphins defense just shut down Lamar Jackson, former NFL MVP. They're only 3,600, so even though they're one of the higher price ones, it's still not an astronomical price, so I really like that. And my flyer pick, don't love a lot of the bottom end defenses, but if you are going to punt at defense, which a lot of times we like to do, Raiders defense, I think they're going to have a nice bounce back against the Bengals offensive line that is very susceptible to a good pass rush, and the Raiders have one of the best pass rushes in the NFL. Say what you will about the rest of their defense, and obviously they had trouble against Kansas City, but it's not due to their pass rush. Max Crosby and Yannick Ngakoue have been fantastic. Only 2,600, so if I'm punting a defense, I'm going Raiders D.
I think if you're going to pay up, Titans went from one of the cheapest defenses to the number one defense.
By the way, we forgot to include Tommy. We did last week, and this week we're just like, we need to get Tommy involved.
You guys are just crushing it.
Tommy's the one. Hey, Tommy's the one who won the other league DFS
right.
this week.
He just sits in silence and then makes his last.
I just absorb all of your knowledge. I think that's the secret. That's how I've been able to win.
Tommy, what are the odds you play Devonte Smith this week?
The chances are actually incredibly high. What's his price right now? I don't even have that in front of me, unfortunately. But I'm going to say the odds are incredibly high because I still can't imagine being that expensive.
I don't even think they're on the main slate, so they're actually probably low. They might not be. I'm not sure. but anyway, Titans, the number one defense, price defense this week versus Houston. Tournament play. Don't hate it. I mean, it's a good play, but it's priced that way. And I mean, how do you not go Lions defense versus Cleveland, 2,100? You've got a gimpy Baker Mayfield or Case Keenum, one of the two. They're not going to get 15 points or 20 points, but there's a very real chance that they get a serviceable number at $2,100. So I'm probably just going to punt all the way down and take the Lions. That strategy would have worked this week against Pittsburgh. They had a very, very average, good fantasy day for their price point. So this will be the only time that I pick anything to do with the Lions in my segment. So that shout out to you, Anthony.
Enjoy it while you can.
I hope it comes back to bite me, honestly. But if the Lions are going to beat anybody, it's the Browns.
Let's recap our DFS leagues. So as a refresher, we have one free league on DraftKings, 100% free. If you want to enter it, just send us an email at pigskinpartypodcast@gmail.com or message us on Twitter at officialpppod. I won this week.
Woo-hoo!
I finally took me 10 weeks to win our DraftKings league. I nearly won our other season-long league that ended up being Tommy. But the point is, I give all these hires and flyers and DFS advice picks, and until this week, I hadn't actually had a decent week. But I won with 152.84 points. I figure since I won, we can start a new segment, not a segment, but a portion of this going forward where whoever wins, let's read their lineup so we can get an idea of exactly how they played. So I started, most of these were in my Higher and Flyers last week.
Wait a minute. You just got the brilliant idea to read the winning lineup on the week that you just happened to win.
Hey, we're 1 year in, and I've inspired, 365 days we'll be doing this podcast somehow. So yes, I never know when inspiration is going to hit me, Will. You just got to roll with it.
Yeah, it's funny.
So many of these plays were in my Hires and Flyers. So if you listen and you're like, do those guys actually play the guys they recommend? Well, I do, because my hire last week was Dak Prescott. Well, I played Dak Prescott, got me 26.34 points. At running back, I had Cordero Patterson, who did suffer that injury. He was the lowest scoring on my team, my board Corduroy, which disappointing. But like I said, injury related. He might even be out for next week. Mark Ingram, who was substituted in really cheap for Alvin Kamara, who was out. He got me over 20 points. Chris Godwin, the old adage, when Antonio Brown is out, Godwin feasts. That didn't exactly happen, but it seemed like that whole Bucs team was a little off. CeeDee Lamb was the stack I recommended, 28.6 points. Together with Dak Prescott. Jerry Jeudy, 11 points against the Eagles. Dan Arnold, we mentioned earlier, 13.7 points because Trevor Lawrence likes throwing to Dan Arnold of all people. Ernest Johnson with 22.7 points in my flex. And the Panthers defense going up against Colt McCoy, 12 points. That is the winning lineup. In second place for this week, $15 if you want to claim it. Yasman, Yasman, with 142.34 points. And $5 for third place, MRA Lexrest, MRALEXREST with 140.04. If you want to...
Mr. Alex Rest.
You know what? I'm Mr. Alex Rest. Okay, I guess you're right. It's all lowercase. Mr. Alex Rest. If your name is Alex, I apologize. Okay. Mr. Alex Rest, if you want your $5, email us to pigskinpartypodcast@gmail.com or official PPPod on Twitter. The code word was changed by Will, but you know what? In addition to the Nuggets, I'm going to roll with this one, Will. I'm going to read for your sadness for the Bucs losing. Email code word, Fournette is not Mike Evans. That's code phrase, Fournette is not Mike Evans. Email that to pigskinpartypodcast@gmail.com or Twitter official PPPod, and you'll get instructions on how to get your winnings for Yasman in second or Mr. Alex Rest in third. And a quick rundown, as I mentioned, Tommy won week 10 in our host league on the other DFS platform that shall not be named. Host standings are unchanged. Will in first, Tommy in second, me in third. But I'm feeling a little bit better about my DFS propositions going forward. So that's it. I like this. I like recapping games that were drafted. I don't know about you guys, but I think this is a good way to do it going forward. On that note, let's wrap up the main episode, head over to the flavor of the week, and pick our games for week 11. Any last words, gentlemen, officially recording on our 1-year anniversary of the PPP?
Where are my Nuggets?
I second that. Where are Will's Nuggets?
Where are your
Nuggets?
Nuggets? Tommy, you should get Nuggets too.
Nuggets all around, all right? And you know what? Email me. Or send us official PP pod on Twitter. I'll send you nuggets too. I don't care. I'm feeling good. 1 year of the PPP. Didn't think we would go this far. We started off talking about some football and some politics, and here we are with the Pigskin Party
And then
podcast.
you found some random Asian dude, and now look where you are.
We had to fill a
you've hit the
diversity
peak.
quota. We had the Rooney Rule that we had to meet.
Listen,
We did, and
the amazing thing about how Tommy came to be was Brian went on a streak of picking the worst guests I've ever had on podcasts in my entire life. And then we had you on, and I'm like, that guy's not
contrast of it.
That guy is not that.
Yeah, it's not that I was good. It's just I wasn't good, but I wasn't butt cheeks. And then you guys were like, "Holy crap, that was the best guy ever."
It was incredible. It was incredible. So
when you go from PJ Walker to Cam Newton, there's just such a contrast. So,
Magical
there we go.
things happen.
So let's go ahead and wrap it up. We will be recording our flavor of the week where we'll make our week 11 picks. Make sure to also stay tuned for Tommy's Fantasy Island. Thanks as always for listening. Thanks especially if you've stuck with us from the beginning or near the beginning. Can't believe we made it to 1 year. Make sure to stick around.